Halfway through the first month of 2023, and one trend we are seeing in real estate from 2022 has continued into this month, and that is extremely low home sales. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb right now and predict halfway through January that by the end of this month, we will see a record low number of home sales across the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, even lower than we saw last December. What is the reasoning behind these low home sales? Well, one narrative that I'm hearing that I don't like so much is the low inventory narrative. So I want to jump into that with you today. We're going to take a look at inventory numbers as well as the reason or reasons that I feel sales are so low heading into the new year. Hey, everybody, it's me, Rob Marsiglio, sales representative with Keller Williams Referred Urban Realty, living out here in Durham Region, serving the area, but bringing you content each and every week about all things GTA real estate and beyond. If you get value out of these videos each and every week, all I ask is that you like this one, maybe subscribe to the channel, and share it with a friend who may find this content useful as well. And if you have any questions about anything I go over today, please hop down in the description of the video, click on that link that says book a call, and I'll take you right to my calendar. We can have some time to chat. Enough of that though, let's get right into things. First things first, we're talking about record low sales across the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. So just how low are we talking? Well, as of right now, we are projected to be at about 2,261 sales. That is down from about 3,300 sales in December of 2022. I'm getting to that number by taking a look at the 1,060 sales we've had through the first 15 days of the month, and then just kind of applying that pace for the rest of the month. So again, by the quick math that I did, it'll be between 22 and 2,300 sales that we'll see. I'm gonna go out on a limb and put my number down as 2,550 for the month of January, right across the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. I want you to comment below, how many sales do you think are gonna happen across all condo and freehold types? I'll update you at the end of the month with what that number actually is. But let's have a little bit of fun with this. As I alluded to, one argument that I'm hearing for these low sales number is that there's just no inventory out there. There's a ton of buyers lined up. You're seeing anecdotes of 30 offers in some areas, 40 offers out in the Kitchener-Waterloo region. That being said, I think the inventory argument is bunk, and I want to jump into exactly why. Once again, here's a look at active inventory going all the way back to January of 2015 and where we stand today in January of 2023. To help break it down even clearer for you, this red line is where we stand today in January 2023. And I've put arrows, black arrows, pointing to all the previous Januaries going back to 2015. And by my count, there are 1, 2, 3 Januaries that had higher inventory and 5 Januaries that had lower inventory from where we currently stand. And you can see that of those 5, 1, 2, 3, and 4 came in 2017 and 2020 through 2022, the kind of 4 hottest markets that we've experienced in the past decade. So no, a lack of inventory is not causing a low sales issue. Illustrated another way inventory, let's take a look at what's happening in the Greater Toronto area specifically. This chart only goes back to the beginning of May, and I plot this on a weekly basis, keeping track of what months of inventory is doing. And as a reminder for everybody, months of inventory is taking a look at the active inventory at any given point and dividing that number by the total number of sales over the past 30 days. And this kind of gives you an idea of how many months would it take to sell out of our active inventory. So that number jumped from 3.2 in the middle of December to 5.06 just a few weeks later. So what contributes to that number? Obviously, active inventory has climbed a little bit, as we saw in the previous chart from December into January, but the rate of sales has also stayed relatively low. It's actually been decreasing. So if it's not a lack of inventory that's leading to these low sales, what is it? In my opinion, it is this chart that says it all. It is the sold price to ask price ratio. How do we arrive at this number? Very simply, we take a look at what our property is being listed for, what are they selling for, and what is that sales amount as a percentage of the list price. If you've watched this channel, you may know my disdain for this number, realtors using it to say sold for X amount over list price on their advertising, things along those lines. But I think it does come in handy when you're trying to analyze what is going on in the market right now. And that's because home sellers are kind of stuck, I think, in this period between 2020 and the beginning of 2022, when properties were selling well in excess of the list price. Sellers still have it stuck in their heads that their properties are worth a little more, and they may be listing for unrealistic amounts. But as you can see, this sold to ask ratio has dipped down below 1, and really the most since going back to, this is December of 2018 when we saw lows this low. Now here's just a little proof that the sales totals are affected by this sales to ask ratio. You can see the last time that we had a major spike in sales to ask ratio was back in the 2016-2017 market. And, sales totals up until that point, you could see a pretty regular pattern of an increased number of sales leading up to the spring market, dipping off into August, and then increasing again in September, falling off in the wintertime. Same thing happened in 2016. But what happened here in 2017, sales stayed really suppressed for the latter half of the year. And that's coming off the back of this frenzy of buyers. People were bidding over asking, much like we saw through 2021 and 2022. As soon as sellers weren't getting the money they were asking for their properties, this number really dipped below, hovered right around 1 and below. We saw suppressed sales really from 2017 all the way through 2019. It wasn't until 2020 when we saw sales start to pick back up. You can also see the sold to ask ratio pick back up. It stayed consistently over 1 for the better part of 2 years, and sales numbers in unison kind of stayed high, much higher than you'd see seasonally. But now that we've seen this number dip back below 1, the sold to ask ratio, you can see that ever since then, the trend in sales has really started to fall off pretty drastically. It's a very similar story when you compare the sold to ask ratio, again in blue, to what the average sale price is doing. So you can see that when this number hovers at or around, even just a bit below, prices stay pretty flat. It's not until they spike that these frenzies happen, that prices get driven up. But as we see again in 2017, sold to ask ratio spiked, sales spiked, as sold to ask came down, so did average sale price, stayed pretty steady until again we saw the same thing happen in 2020, 2021. Even more drastically this time, massive spike in the sell to ask ratio. Now this big fall off, and we are seeing the fall off in prices as well. So that's my first reason there for the low sales again, is that since sellers aren't getting the prices they're expecting, you can see that being reflected in that properties are selling on average less than what sellers are asking for them. They're just choosing not to sell at this point. Now, if you want to use the active inventory argument, there's one kind of way that I could see it potentially ringing true. Again, this is a very similar chart to what I showed, comparing all the different Januaries to where we are sitting at currently. What is new on this chart is this black dot, and this black dot represents the total number of properties that have been sitting on the market for 30 plus days. Again, this is as of January 15th. So on January 15th, we had 11,209 active listings across the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, that is condo and freehold properties. Of those 11,200 listings, 6,423 of them have been sitting on the market for 30 plus days. That makes up 57% of active listings. So while there is a ton of inventory, a lot of it has been sitting on the market for a while. So again, if you want to use the inventory as a argument for low sales, maybe you could say there's a lack of reasonably priced at market value inventory. But I think it all feeds back into my argument that it's just sellers being unrealistic right now. And it wouldn't be a real estate video in 2023 if we weren't talking about what is happening with rates, which I think makes up another big part as to why sales are so low. And it really feeds into the narrative that sellers are being unrealistic. Again, if sellers are thinking that their property is worth what we were seeing back in March, and we have rates like we see now, clearly there is an issue. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something new, please leave a like, maybe subscribe to the channel. I do content like this each and every week. Share it with a friend who you think would get some use out of it as well. And until we speak again next time, please stay safe and cheers. Hey there, I really appreciate you watching this video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, I've got another video for you right here on the screen. And while you're here, maybe just click on my face, subscribe to. I don't want you to miss anything going forward.